Hey, what's up? I'm Channel Pup Fanboy Supervillain, and we might have already gotten our first glimpse at the version of Batman that will be inhabiting James Gunn's connected DC universe. And I'm not talking about that cameo in Creature Commandos. I'm talking about a rumor that I wouldn't usually entertain if it weren't for the fact that Matt Reeves hasn't actually ruled it out, and has said something pretty much to the contrary. Yeah, I'm genuinely saying this right now, even though it sounds like the most pie-in-the-sky thing ever. Robert Pattinson's Batman could be joining the DCU. But why isn't this being ruled out? How would it work, and is it even a good idea? Well, that's what we're here to discuss today. Subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, if you want to support me a bit further, the link to my Patreon page is in the description below. All support hugely appreciated. Thank you very much. So with the question of, is Robert Pattinson the DCU Batman, the answer to this one may seem like an obvious no, but surprisingly, Matt Reeves and James Gunn don't appear to be ruling this out. James Gunn on social media is usually pretty quick to nip speculation in the bud. While he doesn't exactly give away spoilers for what we can expect from the DCU, he's no stranger to dismissing things that aren't going to happen, and surprisingly, he's kept pretty quiet in regard to Robert Pattinson becoming the Batman of the DC universe. And since December, that's kind of been the talk of the town. Especially with the recent Penguin TV series, there has been a huge surge in enthusiasm for Robert Pattinson's Batman, and I can definitely see the appeal as well in having Robert Pattinson's Batman be the Batman of the DCU. I am quite satisfied calling Robert Pattinson's Batman a definitive cinematic Batman, and that's kind of what you want for that centralized DC universe. But hold up. Surely that's already ruled out, as in the Gods and Monsters slate, James Gunn revealed Batman the Brave and the Bold, a film from director Andy Muschietti that will feature the Bat Family and Damian Wayne. Meanwhile, the Batman Part 2 will be an Elseworlds project. Now, it is worth noting that things do change, and things have changed from that initial slate. During that presentation, James Gunn said that Shazam could easily slot into the DCU. He said that The Flash would be kind of the launch pad of the DCU. And they're not. Superman was going to be called Superman Legacy, now it's not called Superman Legacy. Creature Commandos was originally a standalone passion project, now it ties into the greater DCU. Plans do change, things do change, and things are changing. And more evidence pointing to the fact that plans for Batman are changing is the fact that both live-action Batman projects, Andy Muschietti's Batman the Brave and the Bold and Matt Reeves' The Batman Part 2, have been delayed. Now, there is a bit of conflicting information here, with Andy Muschietti stating that his Batman project has been postponed while he works on a new sci-fi project. However, days later, James Gunn stated that the film was not delayed. With that being said, this could theoretically be kind of a lie by technicality in that, well, how can a film be delayed if it was never given a release date in the first place? And that's the truth. Batman the Brave and the Bold didn't actually have a release window. But if Andy Muschietti is to be believed currently, then yeah, his Batman project could probably be on the back burner, allowing more room and time for changes from the top down. And then at the same time, the Batman Part 2 has also been delayed to 2027. It was originally meant to release this year, then it was delayed to 2026, and now we can't expect it until 2027. Now, had the Batman Part 2 released in 2025, this would have given Andy Muschietti's project a nice bit of space to release in 2026 or 7. But now we've got two wildly different Batman projects releasing incredibly close together. Now, I'm not saying this can't be done. Spider-Man has successfully managed that between MCU films and the Spider-Verse animated projects, but it's not exactly elegant, especially when both projects are in live action and both projects are presumably going to follow Bruce Wayne. And Matt Reeves' The Batman universe as an Elseworlds thing isn't exactly out there. As I said, I'd be happy to call Matt Reeves' take on Batman the definitive cinematic version, because he encompasses everything that makes Batman great and doesn't really deviate from that. He's a quintessential Batman, and surely the DCU, this centralized version, would be aiming for a similar overall appeal for their Batman. So if you then have like two Bruce Wayne Batman movies releasing back to back, things are going to get a little bit messy. And obviously the DCU are going to want to introduce their Batman sooner rather than later. character. He's one of the defining pillars of the DC universe, so you need to introduce him fairly early on. But one of the major bits of information that tells me that there is still a chance for Robert Pattinson to be the Batman of the DCU is a quote from Matt Reeves. In the past, both he and James Gunn have been pretty confidently stating that the Batman is a standalone thing. But earlier in January this year at the Golden Globes, Matt Reeves was asked by a reporter about the Batman being part of the DCU, and his response was, "It really comes down to whether it makes sense. There was a story I wanted to tell, the epic crime saga. It's been important to me to play that out, and James Gunn and Peter Safran have been really great about that. They're letting us do that. What the future brings, I can't really tell you. I have no idea. My head is down right now on getting the Batman Part 2 shooting, which is the most important thing." So what this answer tells me is that Matt Reeves is not ruling out the Batman being part of the DCU, provided it makes sense and provided he can still tell the story that he wants to tell, and that James Gunn and Peter Safran have been very accommodating of that idea. And here's the thing, he could have just said no. Like he and James Gunn have done time and again in the past. He could so easily have just said, no, the Batman is not part of the DCU, it's an Elseworld thing, they'll be having their own Batman and I'm very excited for that. He could have just said that. But he didn't. He said he doesn't know what the future holds. He dropped conditions and maybes. Maybe that is a conversation that is happening behind the scenes. Maybe when they first met, James Gunn and Matt Reeves agreed to kind of, leave each other to their own devices, but then as time went by, maybe they got along, maybe they realized that their ideas are more compatible. Again, things do change. The DCU is still in the earliest of early days. And the fact that they went from ruling it out to not ruling it out shows that there is a progression here. There is a pipeline. The question is, should they do this? Is it a good idea? Is Pattinson the right Batman for the DCU? And is the DCU right for Matt Reeves' epic crime saga? And if you ask me, it depends on literally everything. But I cannot confidently say yes, and I do lean more towards no, and I'll explain why. Robert Pattinson being the Batman of the DCU would be good for the DCU. It would mean that the DCU has an excellent version of Batman that everybody really loves, and we'd carry over some great Batman rogues like the Penguin as well. Like when I look at the show The Penguin and the Batman, this is what I want Batman projects to be like. And there are folks saying, but no, there's no way these could possibly fit into the same universe. It's like, have you ever, read a Batman and a Superman comic? Because Gotham and Metropolis are supposed to be polar opposites. It's part of what makes this universe so interesting and so varied. If Metropolis is the sort of Art Deco utopia that we've seen in the Superman trailer, and then Gotham City is the absolute shithole where it rains all the time, like in the Batman, that's kind of the dichotomy you want between Gotham and Metropolis. Looking at Superman, who is very much your quintessential superhero in the Superman trailer, and then looking at Batman, who is very broody and introspective, that is what you want from that dichotomy. We don't like seeing these characters meet up because they're so similar. We like seeing these worlds collide because they're so different. And that's good for the DCU. But then obviously there's the compromise of the epic crime saga as well, and kind of the very grounded approach it's going for. The Batman and the Batman epic crime saga universe is more focused on just the crime in Gotham, mob families, criminals. We're not doing things that are supernatural as far as I understand. That's not the focus of this version of the Batman universe. But part of what makes the Batman universe so compelling, you could watch an episode of Batman the Animated Series, for example, and in one episode, you could have the Batman taking down gangsters and crime families. Another episode, he could be fighting Man-Bat or Killer Croc. And it's all just more of what makes Gotham great. It's what makes that universe so compelling, is that Batman is sometimes going to be thrown way out of his depth. He's used to dealing with criminals like the Riddler and the Penguin, but is he used to dealing with a criminal like Clayface or Mr. Freeze? There's a versatility to this character and this world, and while I am willing to just see what Matt Reeves has in mind for the epic crime saga, if you are just doing that side of Batman, you are effectively making half a universe. And for a trilogy and some TV shows and stuff, that works fine, but I can see how folding this into the DCU could benefit both the DCU and the Batman universe's depiction of Gotham. The point where I kind of draw the line, though, is Weasel, for example. I do have a hard time, viewing the credibility of the epic crime saga universe and how grounded it's trying to be, because, you can make characters like Mr. Freeze and Clayface least grounded in some way without taking too much away from the character. You can, like, cover them in logic, effectively. But Weasel... We already know who Weasel is. We already know what his whole thing is. You want to watch the Batman and believe that somewhere in this world Weasel's running around? Well, I mean, it worked okay for Marvel in the end. Like, you know, you look at a film like Captain America the Winter Soldier and it is quite grounded, but then you've got Guardians of the Galaxy and doesn't really distract as long as the film is good on its own merits, you know? Like, as long as the epic crime saga can tell its own stories without having to account for things like Weasel or Creature Commandos or the events of, like, Superman 2025, I think they can make this work. But then my caveat is basically I'm saying I'm fine with this as long as the Batman movies still feel standalone. What I'm basically saying is leave the Batman alone. Like, have the Batman Part 1, 2, and 3 come out as they were planned. Have the Penguin series, have any other series that kind of fold into that. But I don't want to see any DCU stuff crossing over into the Batman. I would like to see the Batman cross over into the DCU, if that makes sense. I'd like to see Robert Pattinson's Batman among the Justice League. That would be fucking awesome. But I don't want them rocking up in his movies, because that's not what the vision is for those movies. Making this crossover kind of a one-way street. I'm happy to see Pattinson's Batman in DCU projects, provided the DCU doesn't have an impact on the Batman's own movies and that they can still feel standalone, and that's kind of a little strange. It would be quite ballsy to do a thing like that. The other thing is, I want it to be Matt Reeves' take. I do not want, like, the Batman Part 2 to merge with Batman the Brave and the Bold and it be directed by Andy Muschietti or anything like that. I don't want this version of Batman being reverse engineered into like a very comic book centralized Batman wearing like the gray and blue suit and stuff like that, because that's not what this Batman is. While he still looks like a very comic booky Batman, he does have a very distinct look as Batman. And I don't want us to lose that in favor of like the gray and blue. Of course I want to see the gray and blue, but I don't want it to come at the expense of what we've laid down with Matt Reeves' take. Not to mention, simply put, if Matt Reeves is against the idea or says no, then I just don't want it to happen. If it goes against his plans in any way, then I do not want it. I am completely all in on the epic crime saga right now. No, I don't give a fuck that they changed Oswald Cobblepot's name to Oswald Cobb. What's in a name? A rose by any other name is still a rose, isn't it? And you're gonna just call him Penguin anyway. So I am absolutely all in on Matt Reeves' vision for Batman. I can see why they've gotten Matt Reeves as kind of the Batman guy. They got him to supervise with Batman the Caped Crusader, and he's also going to be co-producing the upcoming Robin's animated project. But then there's also the fact that, like, Matt Reeves has said this can only happen if they can make it make sense, and the truth be told, it probably wouldn't, because of Dr. Phosphorus's origin story in Creature Commandos, taking place way earlier than the Robert Pattinson Batman would have even been Batman. And they make a point of showing that Batman does exist in that period in Creature Commandos. Not to mention the silhouette isn't really a match either. Now, things can be retconned and shifted about, but I don't think that's the right call, especially this early on. There is enough confusion surrounding the DCU right now and its connectivity with the DCEU, and those naming conventions alone are a little confusing. Yeah, I think it's way too early for that. Personally, if you ask me, I think the best thing to come out of the transaction of Robert Pattinson's Batman joining the DCU would be seeing him among the Justice League. And is that really enough of a payout? I think the best thing to do would be to have a different Batman in the DCU and just keep Robert Pattinson's Batman going as an Elseworlds thing that maybe in the future Matt Reeves could even flesh out. Maybe we could see like a Reeves versus Superman at some point. Maybe we could see other heroes appear in the Batman movies beyond Part 3, I guess, if, you know, that's what Matt Reeves wants to do, and see his takes on those characters. And then, yeah, we would get to see Robert Pattinson's Batman among his Justice League brethren, and that would be really cool. I'd rather see that, to be honest. So what would I like to see then for DCU Batman? Well, I actually think the idea for Batman the Brave and the Bold was sound. Introduce the Bat family. Let Pattinson's Batman continue on as this lone wolf, but separate these Batmen by having this one be the one to have all the Robins and Batgirls and Oracle. Let the Reeves-verse be that dark, grounded, gritty crime saga, while this one can explore more villains like Mr. Freeze, Clayface, and we know that Clayface is a part of the DCU already. Although I will say, just because the Reeves-verse is doing something doesn't mean that I think the Gunn-verse shouldn't. Like, I'd still like to see the Penguin. Like, I think the Penguin is a very core part of the Batman universe, and I think that should carry over to the DCU. I want to see characters like the Riddler and the Joker. If Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is very introverted and very quiet, I think, you know, DCU poses an opportunity to have that billionaire playboy socialite Bruce Wayne out of the box. Have him be built like a brick shithouse if, you know, the Pattinson Batman is going more for the kind of lean approach. Have him go all in on the theatrics, but don't lose sight of the detective stuff either, because I'm so glad we're finally getting more of that now. And I will say the DCU is the perfect place for us to finally get a grey and blue batsuit, and I'd say even bring back the yellow oval emblem. Heck, do the white eyes there! I've been completely against putting white eyes on Pattinson's Batman because of how expressive he is within the cowl, but put him on DCU Batman for all I care. Just make a really, really comic booky Batman for the DCU. That's a little longer in the tooth, has his Robins, has his Bat family, has more fantastical gadgets, a more fantastical take on the Batmobile, I guess, and tell really compelling stories with that version of Batman. Admittedly, Andy Muschietti's not my ideal director for a Batman project. I don't really hold The Flash against him, although I will say his little thing where he kind of said that the reason The Flash failed was because The Flash doesn't really mean much to people, and how women are one of the demographics that don't really care about The Flash. Yeah, no, that's worrying. Like, no, that's not the case. As a director, it is your job to make the audience care about the character. Not only that, people didn't watch the Flash movie because it fucking sucked. And I'm not saying that's Andy Muschietti's fault. I think he was working within impossible constraints from a constantly shifting DC hierarchy. But I would feel much more confident if, say, Sam Raimi was directing Batman, because he said he wanted to do it. And I was like, yes, Sam Raimi would be perfect. If not for this, then let's get a world's finest movie someday. Have Sam Raimi direct that. I trust Raimi with both Superman and Batman. That would be freaking awesome. So yeah, clearly it is still within the realm of possibility that things could change. That The Batman Part 2 could be our first DCU Batman movie. Or that maybe The Batman Part 2 and Batman the Brave and the Bold get merged, and that it's like directed by Andy Muschietti, and I hate that idea. Or that maybe we just still have both, and I personally think that's the better call. But what do you guys think? Comment below, discuss, and as always, if you've enjoyed this video and you want to support more like it, be sure to hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below is the link to my Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to these videos ad-free, downloadable at any time, occasional early access, exclusive postings, and your name in the credits, with a special shout-out going to the patrons in the $5 and above tier. We have Seppo the Smith, Silver, Josh Strider, Grant Allen, Twilord, Coco210, Hey It's Classy, Jay Sevian, Ian, Cho Henshin, KB, RT0, Kalex, Hypes, Sad Goku, Dare Denny, SSS06, Kale Bennett, Skibbity, ha, I made Pop say Skibbity, how dare you, Kale Bennett, Ken K, Mr. SP, Cirrus Skeptic, Biotin, and Vera Wild. Thank you folks so much for your generosity, and to all of you at home, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Now get out of here.